Hello, this is Joe from Nerd in Korea. We are starting another budget deck tech. This time, Will Scion of Peace. I'm calling this Life is Cards. This is all about getting card draw and gaining life. Two things that are very useful in this game. Alright, so first up, Will Scion of Peace. He is one and a white and a blue, or Azorius as they say, for a 2/4 with Vigilance. That's already a good start, I think. But his tap ability is what really makes him shine. Spells you cast this turn that are white or blue cost X less to cast, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn. Activate only as a sorcery. Alright, so one very important thing to keep in mind is that it's how much you've gained that turn, right? Not the last time. Like if you gain 1 life and then tap him, it doesn't mean you only get 1 cost reduction, it's the total life you've gained. So if you gain 1, you'd get 5 cost reduction altogether because that's how much you gained. You do have to pay attention to how much life you've gained every turn. That's very important with this commander. Anyway, he has 26 cents. The deck price, I'm trying to keep these super low because they do seem more popular. This is $33.47 as of last night. So the design objective is to take maximum advantage of his healing and spell slinging. We want to do lots of spell slinging in this deck, and he makes it very easy. Azorius is usually not a color combination you think is spell slinger. Usually more of an Ixit or Grixis thing, but is it not Ixit? I don't know where that came from. Anyway, yeah, so this is kind of an unusual commander for the spell slinging kind of archetype, but I think that makes it kind of useful. Again, the prices are determined using the TCG market value, or the value on TCG Player. It does tend to be quite a lot lower than the other options, so yeah. Sometimes they're like double. I'm like, how do you stay in business? But anyway, okay. The link for this is on Moxfield and it's in the description. So if you want to get this deck, you can pick it up. Super easy. Part 1, Will Scion of Peace. So we're talking about the commander here. He is all about life gain, right? So this is kind of the most important thing in the deck. Number 1 is life gain, definitely. What Will is really good at is putting life gain to a double use, right? Usually life gain is great because you have life, you stay in the game. With Will, it's cost reduction also. Like life gain is cost reduction, and that's actually even better than just really, as long as you have one life point, you're in the game. It's the same as having 400. It really doesn't make that big a difference most of the time. With Will, if you can keep gaining, you just keep cranking out spells. Card draw is important to keep casting, right? So card draw in this is more important than other decks because of this huge cost reduction, and you can just keep playing spells. If you don't have spells in your hand, you can't play them. You need the card draw, big time. So we have a lot of things that kind of connect life gain and card draw in this deck. Untapping him allows you to activate double cost reduction, so that is also a key component in this deck. Being able to untap Will, you can tap him again, even if it is the amount of life you gain that turn. So let's say you gain 5 life and then tap him and a 5 cost reduction. If you untap him and immediately tap him again, that does stack. That's 10 cost reduction, right? It's not like life you've gained since the last time you tapped him or something. Like if you tap him and then untap him and then gain 2 more life after gaining 5, you'd have another 7 cost reduction. You have 12 total, not just 7, alright? It does stack, and it does count all the life you gained that turn. So the high synergy cards, we have Phyrexian Processor. So when it enters the battlefield, you can pay any amount of life, and then for 4 mana and tapping, you can make a Phyrexian token that has that as its toughness, or as its attack or power and toughness, right? So if you put this into the battlefield and you say pay 20 life, every time you tap this, you pay for and tap it, you get a 20/20 token. Just a monster of a card, really, in this deck. And a lot of it is getting like the kind of stacking effect from the life gain, right? Gaining the life, even with the cost reduction, after a certain point, it's like if it was only cost reduction, you would be not really taking full advantage of it. So we want to look at things that let us take greater advantage of the cost reduction or of the life gain. Clear It class in this deck, this is always a good card in this deck. It's amazing. All right, so if you would gain 1 life, gain that much life plus 1 instead. So that's good right off the bat. Just being put on the battlefield is good. You can level it up as a sorcery also. It does have to be as a sorcery, which is unfortunate, but for 3 and a white, whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Every time you gain life, you're putting a +1/+1 counter on a creature. That stacks up very quickly. I've used this card in Arena, and it's out of control very quick. Yeah, very quickly. And if you go up to level 3, it has graveyard recursion. You can put a creature from your graveyard straight back into the battlefield. So yeah, that can be very useful too. We're really interested in casting it in level 2. That's kind of the main things for this deck, but anyway. Congregate. Target player gains 2 life for each creature on the battlefield. This is very good for like kind of a catch-up card. If you're, if someone else is getting out of hand, like especially if there's some kind of token strategy that's taking over the board, you can gain life for all the tokens on the battlefield or all the creatures on the battlefield, including tokens. It doesn't matter if they're yours or not, right? This doesn't care if you own them, just that they're on the battlefield. And that's why this is really crazy. And yeah, you can get so much. I mean, 2 life for each creature is just insane, especially in Commander. 4 players, that's a lot of life gain right there. So I don't know how to say your name. I'm realizing now. Yoreth of the Healing House. I gotta say these out loud. I always mean to. Tap to untap target permanent creature, untap 2 legendary creatures. Okay, so you could, if you've got Will and another legendary on the battlefield, legendary creatures, right? Untap a permanent or untap 2 legendary creatures. Sorry, that's kind of the hitch right there. Untapping Will allows you to stack his cost reduction, so we do have several cards in this deck that allow you to untap Will and then tap him again to get just like massive cost reduction. At a certain point you might say, well, is there really a point if I've already got cost reduction of like 8? Do I need another 8? That's where the X cost cards come in. We have a whole whack load of X cost cards that are just going to like go insane when you do this. For instance, right here, you gain X life and draw X cards. Okay, card draw, always great, especially in this deck, and life gain. So yeah, it's an X cost spell that allows you to gain life and draw cards. It is ideal setup for untapping Will and activating his cost reduction again. This is a card that's really, it's good always, but especially when, yeah, you've already tapped him once and you've got an untap effect. If you can untap him or use this and then untap him, it doesn't really matter. Use this before you tap him the second time and you're just like basically doubling your life gain that turn. And your by that your cost reduction that turn. Yeah. And a pile of cards. Oh. Part 2, deck objectives. So this is how to win, right? What do we want to do to actually win the game? Objectives, get life gain set. Number 1, first of all, definitely get your life gain going. Then get card draw set, and then your win con. We do have win cons attached to each of these strategies, so we'll take a look at that. Okay, Life gain, gain life, and then synergy and token creature generation are 3 major things we get from this. Alright, first up, the life gain. So Daxos gives us whenever a creature enters the battlefield or dies, gain 1 life. So your creatures dying are going to gain you life, and entering the battlefield are going to gain you life with him. That, especially, you combine that with something like Clear class, and you're gaining 2 every time. Out of control very fast. Gerard Capuchin. So at the beginning of your upkeep, you gain 1 life for each card in target opponent's hand. So you're going to check all of your opponents and see how many cards do they have. Whoever has the most, gain that much life. Very, very, especially combined with some other effects, this like sets you up right from the get-go to have that life gain and be able to tap Will for the cost reduction without doing anything. That's the main strength to him. And Invoke the Divine. This is an instant, so we do have quite a few instants and sorceries that can gain life in this, so that's something to point out. And this is our targeted removal. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Artifact and enchantment targeted removal is number 1. That's by far the most important, because creatures you can kill with damage, you can kill in combat, you can get rid of them all kinds of ways. Artifacts and enchantments, kinda automatically somewhat protected from a lot of ways of means of removal anyway. And gain 4 life. This is also a great thing to do on someone else's turn to get that 4 life gain. 2, well, I'll get to that. Synergy. Okay. This is another effect where if you gain life, gain 1 more. So again, Clear class, and this is out. Every time you gain 1 life, you gain 3. Really nuts. And Angel of Vitality gets +2/+2 as long as you have 25 or more life. You start with more than 25 life, right? You start with 40. With this deck, I imagine you won't go below 25 at any point during the game. Hopefully, anyway. Knock on wood. Nykthos Paragon. So whenever you gain life, put that many +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. Do this only once each turn. Again, with Gerard Capuchin, you're going to gain a bunch of life. Right away at the beginning of your turn, you can just put that many +1/+1 counters on all your creatures. All your creatures will just like get super big, even if this is out for like 1 or 2 turns with Gerard. All your creatures, I almost said all your teachers, all your creatures are going to be just scary, right? Well of Lost Dreams. Whenever you gain life, you may pay X, where X is less than or equal to the amount of life you gained. If you do, draw X cards. Again, this is tying the life gain to card draw. Once you have the life gain, remember you got the cost reduction. So this is, I think, a better card in this deck than it is in most others, because like since you have the cost reduction, you can kind of not worry about it so much, and you can pay more to draw cards, which will also gain you life anyway. But anyway, alright. Token generators. Okay, this is where it gets pretty ridiculous. Griffin area at the beginning of your end step. If you gain 3 or more life this turn, which is super easy, create a 2/2 white griffin creature token with flying. Again, all of these create flying tokens. That's really important that they have the built-in evasion. But Griffin area is at the end of your turn only, so there's a limitation right there. Guahir, Greatest of the Eagles, and Angelic Accord will both make tokens every turn. As long as you gain life, every turn you can just keep making these creature tokens. And there's lots of ways to gain life on other people's turns. With him, if you gain 3 or more life, you make a 3/3 bird with flying, and with her, if you gain 4 or more life, make a 4/4 white angel with flying. So you can make flying tokens every single turn as long as your life gain is set up. Just crazy. Yet again, we have like 1 mana instance that'll gain you 4 life, and that will also create 2 token creatures for you on someone else's turn. Oh boy, oh boy. Okay, card draw. Alright, we've got card draw and synergy are the two things I'm looking at. So, once again, card draw. We've got Drog Skull, Reaver, I feel like that's hard to say. Frantic Search, also pull from tomorrow. Okay, Drog Skull, Reaver. Whenever you gain life, draw a card. Again, you got all kinds of little life gain triggers that are going to be going off. Just keep drawing cards. Draw a card, draw a card, draw a card. Every time, right? He's also a flying double strike lifelink creature. So he's going to attack. When he attacks, that's double strike, 2 triggers, right? You gain life twice. Every time he does damage to anything, you draw 2 cards. Just a crazy combo right there. And Frantic Search, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. Untap up to 3 lands. The untapping 3 lands is actually the much better thing in this deck, but I'm going to talk about that later. Finally, pull from tomorrow. This is one of our big card draw cards. We have many in the deck. Draw X cards, and then discard a card. Once again, this is an instant, so this is something you can use on someone else's turn. And hopefully you got your life gain set up so that you can gain life during someone else's turn. And then, yeah, you're just going to keep kind of piling on with that. Anyway, drawing cards and making tokens and just doing a whole bunch of stuff during other people's turns is, well, a lot of fun, I think. Okay, synergy, Ivory Tower. At the beginning of your upkeep, gain X life, where X is the number of cards in your hand, -4. Again, you might have a very, very large card hand, a lot of cards in hand. So this is something like Gerard you can set off at the beginning of your turn, and will give you the life gain, first of all, but also be able to trigger a bunch of other abilities like card draw and like buffing up your units if Nykthos Paragon is out. Chasm Skulker. Whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on him, and when he dies, create X/1/1 blue squid creature tokens with Island Walk. So this is, I really love this. Is like becoming one of my pet cards, I think, because not only is it going to make all those tokens, but it's when it dies, right? So if there's a board wipe and you've got a good number of tokens on him, that becomes almost like a win con for you. Someone else using a board wipe is going to like let you just like take over the game, basically. So it really kind of flips the dynamic on board wipes. So that's why I love this guy. And Shabraz, the Sky Shark. Okay, Shabraz is just an awesome name. But anyway, flying. Whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on Shabraz, the Sky Shark, and gain 1 life. So you draw a card, he gets +1/+1, and then you gain 1 life. Once again, hopefully you've got an effect that is going to make it 2 or 3 life. And then you might start making token creatures off of that as well. Just amazing. And target human gains flying until end of turn. That's a really nice effect. Remember, your commander is a human, so if you're buffing up your commander, doing a commander damage strategy might work. You know, this gives you the option at least. Okay, win cons. Win con number 1. I feel like this is, some people might not like this. I do like it. I don't know. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 50 or more life, you win the game. I think that sounds overly easy, but if people know that that's there, they're going to come at you a lot, right? They're going to try and keep you under 50. So it kind of paints a target on your back, which is obviously not a good thing, but it also, like, if it does work, it's not going to, I don't feel like that's going to seem super cheap. The win cons that go off at the beginning of the upkeep, I've lost to those and I wasn't like, you know, salty about it anyway. Win con number 2, Approach of the Second Sun. So this does have life gain on it. So when it is cast, you put it from your hand. If you've cast it, if this is the second time you cast it, you win the game, first of all. So there's the win con. And if it's not, you put it back into your deck, 7th from the top, and you gain 7 life. So there's your life gain too. You can do it with something like Mind Spring. This would be pretty easy to pull off in one turn with these two cards, right? As long as you've gained, even if you've gained 4 life, and untapped Will and then tapped him again to get 8 cost reduction, this would cost you a white, 2 blue, and another white. 4 mana for the win con. Very doable win con, I think. And win con number 3, we've got just like putting a massive amount of tokens out is our next one, where you can just swarm them basically. So this creates X11 Pegasus creatures with Pegasus creature tokens with flying, where X is your life total. Again, it's working off your life total. That's your kind of your strong point. It is 8 and 2 white to cast. With cost reduction, you can probably get the 8 off there, I think, fairly easily. For 2 white, you might have just like a horde of 1/1 Pegasi. And Righteous Valkyrie. So as long as you have at least 7 or more life than your starting total, creatures you control get +2/+2. So hopefully, again, you've got more than 47 or more life. You play this after Stormherd, just creating a huge 47 or more Pegasi, and then you make them all 3/3s instead of 1/1s. I don't know who's going to be able to like deal with that. It's a really weird deck that's going to have like a whole bunch of like, even a dragon deck is going to have like 47 flyers, you know? So yeah. Win con number 4. Usually I have 3. I have 4 in this one. Reality Spasm. You can untap target permanents or tap them, so you can tap down someone's board. That's actually much better than making your creatures unblockable. The second one here, Reverse the Polarity, is only 3 and is a counter spell as well as making all your creatures unblockable. So there's an easy win con right there. But tapping down someone's board means everyone gets to attack them without them blocking, right? You're making one person a very, very easy target. This is especially great in decks, maybe, or in situations, not in your decks, in situations where there's kind of like an arch nemesis, like someone's running away with the game. Tap down their board, and then everyone just is able to like team up and take them out, basically. This is also an instant, so you can do it whenever you want. Part 3, Combos and Tactics. So this is all about getting the most out of the deck. Oh, please hit like and subscribe. It really does help a lot. I'm hoping to get more big time, but alright. Ramp. Okay, so white and blue are not great ramp cards. I think that's, or ramp colors. I think that's a well-known thing. But here's what we got. Keeper of the Accord. Again, if someone else is playing that ramp deck, which someone will be, let's face it, someone's going to have ramp. At the end of their turn, if they have more lands than you, you go get a land. If they have more creatures than you make a creature. And if you've got that, you know, creatures enter the battlefield, gain a life, you're going to gain a life too. And Sun Titan. Okay, so when he enters the battlefield or attacks, you may return target permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this might not sound that impressive, but with Broker's Hideout and the Obscura Storefront, remember, they come into the battlefield, they sacrifice themselves, you gain a life, which is always great, and you go find a card and put it in the battlefield tapped. He lets you just keep pulling things out of your graveyard, right? You can just keep doing this over and over and over. It's a permanent card that costs less than 3, so Sun Titan can just keep pulling them out. They'll come in, sacrifice themselves, you gain 1 life, go back to the graveyard, land into the battlefield tapped, just over and over. It will add up very quickly. Buffing. So, again, we talked about this briefly already. Nykthos Paragon and Gerard Capuchin combination I really like because, yeah, right at the start of your turn, you're just going to say, okay, who has the most cards? And then put all your creatures get that many +1/+1 counters. Just insane. And remember, clear class at level 2 can also do this. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. So not as good, but more consistent than the Nykthos Paragon. It is going to just be so many counters you can drop on things. Especially if you made just a horde of token creatures, then you can do this to all your token creatures and then just throw them at people, right? Untap colored mana. So the main thing that's going to end up being a limitation with this is you can keep tapping, untapping him, and that is going to stack up your cost reduction, but the cost reduction only does the colorless, right? Doesn't do the color mana. After a while, your major limitation is going to be that colored mana. So if you can keep untapping your lands, you can keep playing more and more stuff. So we've got Peregrine Drake. Once again, you can probably cast him for 1 blue, and then when he comes in, you untap 5 lands. Then just cast a whole bunch more. Rewind. First of all, counterspell and untap up to 4 lands. This is a counterspell you can use, again, countering on someone else's turn, and it's going to let you use all of your blue, white and blue instants and sorceries, and just get a whole bunch of extra, kind of almost take an extra turn during someone else's turn. And Frantic Search, we already talked about. It's 3 to untap 3 lands. Once again, these are blue spells, right? So you're hopefully getting that cost reduction, and then yeah. Rewind with cost reduction is 2 blue. Frantic Search with cost reduction is 1 blue. So 1 blue to untap 3 things. Crazy. Oh, my computer's not responding again. Fun. No hand limit. There's so much card draw in this, I would be worried about like just discarding too much, but yeah. Decanter of Endless Water, Thought Vessel, and Reliquary Tower, I think are 3 very standard cards for like not having that card draw, or not having that hand limit anymore. Being able to tap for mana is very nice as well. Again, the tap for 1 mana of any color on the Decanter is much better than the tap for a colorless on Thought Vessel. If you remember, Thought Vessel used to actually be worth some money, and now it's just, yeah, not. I think it's under $1 now. Recursion. Okay, so we got Clear Class we talked about already. It's level 3, lets you take 1 creature, which might be worthwhile. But our next 2, I think, are better options. Ascend from Avernus. Again, for X and 3 white, return all creature and planeswalker cards with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is sneakily really good. You have to exile it after. I should have finished reading, but yeah. What's really good is that it cares about the CMC, right? The converted mana cost. It doesn't care. The X is not the number of creatures, it's the converted mana cost. So if you've got enough cost reduction where you have even 6, I'm pretty sure it's almost every creature in this deck you're taking from your graveyard, you can just throw it back into the battlefield right away. And Case of the Uneaten Feast. So to solve, this is something that first of all gives you 1 extra life every time you gain a life. And to solve, you gain 5 or more life this turn. Very easy to do. Once it's solved, you can sacrifice this case. A creature in your graveyard, or creature cards in your graveyard. You may cast this card from your graveyard until end of turn. Usually this is a good ability if you've got your life gain engine set up and you can just cast like crazy, then this becomes just like redoing the game almost, right? Okay, so this has been Will, Scion of Peace, Life is Cards. I really would like to play this game, this deck. I'd really like to play this deck. I think it would be really interesting. Probably the meanest budget deck I've made. I guess the Yuzuri one had like all kinds of stuff as well, but I feel like just keep casting. You're gonna just be doing so much stuff, even during other people's turns. It might get on the nerves a little, but anyway, alright, take it easy.